We're also going to learn a little bit about how to run a business. Let me ask you a question. If I buy something for $1 and I sell it for $2, what is my markup? No, it's 50%. Because when you look at markup, you look at it as a percentage of your revenue. So if you sell something for $2 and you bought it for $1, your profit is $50 is 50 cents. So a lot of people, when they start their business, they think, okay, I'm marking things up at 25%, and whatever they buy for $1, they sell for $1.25. At the end of the year, they see they didn't make 25% profit, they made 20% profit. It's because it's milabar, not milagav. So if you want to know how much to charge, if you pay $100 and you want 25% markup, you have to do 100 divided by 0.75.
You want this. So no, your Russian, the markup is talking 25%. If you want 25% profit, that's something different.
I mean, it could be not using the markup properly. But at the end of the day, people think that if they always charge 25% more, they're making 25%. In fact, they're only making 20%. That's what we're going to learn a little bit about today when it comes to milagav and milabar. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. So yesterday we ended up concluding that the pasuk of Mimoti Timoti B'Yodei Geneva Acharat Chamar Atzeh Chaim Shnayim Yishalem. We learned at the end of the day we're not using for a kol prat. It was ribui mit ribui. The Himoti Timotei was the ribui, was the two ribuyim, and you take each miyut and you put it there in between. And we found something for sure. Chamor and Seh want to be mad karka, want to be mad avodim, want to be mad shtaris, and then we need something for Geneva Chaim. So we said, Rav taught us on Geneva Chaim that Karen you always pay Kain Shaganav, Achya LeKaren Kain Shaganav, which means no matter what you steal, no matter what it's worth, at the time where you're returning it, you have to make sure that it has the same value as the value that it had when you stole it. And we're going, as in every case, we start off with a broad understanding of it, and then we end up whittling it down to one tiny little individual case. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to
also one of those carve outs.
Oh, it was Hector's Re'eu. No, that was a separate pasuk of Re'eu. Okay, so talking about Gufa. So now we're going to drill down in Rav Salah. Amar Rav, Karen Ke'in Shagonav, Tashlume Kefel, Tashlume Abba V'Chamisha, Kishas Hamad B'Din. Frag the Gemara, my time with the Rav. What is the reasoning behind Rav? Amar Kra, the pasuk says Geneva V'Chaim. Those two words that we didn't have a purpose for, that he darshan. Amar Achmon Chaim the Geneva. What does it mean the Geneva has to be alive? It's Achya LeKaren Kein Shagana. You have to revive the Karen by the Nigzal. In other words, you have to revive it with him, meaning you have to give him exactly what it is that he lost. Amar Absheshis, Zok Absheshis, I don't know about this. Amina, I think Kinayim B'Shachiv Rav Amar Lashmaita. I think that Rebbe Tkafal Shlufen, he was Shlufen when he said this halacha. So there are those who learn it like Gnai, like he was puffing, he didn't say good. There are those who said it L'shvach, even when he's sleeping, how to learn it. So Moti first stood over from his grandfather, that his grandfather, Reb Shimon Rebel's father, his grandmother, my grandmother told me that my husband used to keep a little notebook by his bed. So in the middle of the night, if he thought of Tashvar and learning, he didn't want to forget it by the morning, so he would jot it down. And every morning there's a whole bunch of little ha'aris on the Gemara that he was learning that he thought of in the middle of the night. That never happened to me. It never happened to me that I woke up in the middle of the night thinking of a story in the Gemara. I wouldn't be able to write down what I woke up with thinking in the middle of the night. I can get into trouble. Beryl, do you remember such a story? Moti told us the story. You're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
There was a book on the night table with a pen, and my mother used to wake up. He turned on the light, my father, to see what he was writing.
So he wrote it not in the light, and she turned on the light to see what he was writing.
No, he turned on the light and he wrote it, and it woke her up. That's how she knew.
Unbelievable. So that's Kinayim V'Shachiv Rav Amar Lashmaita. There's no such thing as night day, learning, spirit songs of Shomei Slaves. Gavalti. The Tanya, we learned in Abraisa. Klusha V'Shmina. A Ganem stole an animal that was a scrawny little animal, and the Ganem invested in that, and he fattened it up. So now it's worth more when the time comes to pay it back. The loch is Mishalm Tashlume Kefel, the Tashlume Abba Chamisha, Ke'in Shagana. Rav said you pay Kefel and Arba Chamisha based on its value at the time that you paid back. Yet the Brisa directly contradicts Rav and says the Kefil and the Tashlumi Abba Chamisha, you pay its value based on when you stole it. Zaktimor Amri, that's different. Mishum the Amar Lay, don't forget, this didn't happen by itself. This happened because the Ganav invested in it. So the Amar Lay, the Ganav will tell the Nigdal, Anna Patimna, yeah, chaklis. I invested money in it to fatten it up. Why should I pay you Kefil based on that value? That's mine. I'm happy to give you Kefil of the value that I stole from you. So therefore, Rav's halacha surely wouldn't apply in this case. So you see already we're trying to peel layers off Rav's halacha. Tashma, Shemena v'chisha, the opposite. He stole a healthy animal.
The Bava doesn't have a visa on the animal itself, regardless if Godwin or the God fattened it up. Do I have a lien on? Is that my animal, or is it?
It is your animal. Of course, it's your animal. Of course, it's your animal. Yeah.
The argument's only the kefil. Do I double up?
Well, that's the discussion is on the kefil. The animal for sure goes back. Yeah. I can't imagine that the Ganav has a right to charge back the nigdal or fattening it up.
I'll pay you double what I stole.
No, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to do that unless there's a shinui. Unless there's shinui koinu. Without a shinui, you wouldn't be able to do that. And the Gemara is going to actually discuss the shinui thing. What was the opposite? He told the healthy animal, and he starved it. He beat it, and it became weak. Mishalom Tashlumik, you know the story with the guy who bought a horse. There's a Gevaltic horse. It produced unbelievably well. It worked. But the problem is it ate so much. And the guy says, it's a good horse, but I eat so much. You know what I have to do? I need to save money on gas. I'm going to reduce the amount that I feed it by 50%. Shine. For a couple of days, the horse was a little schwach, but he beat that horse, and the horse got used to it, and the horse was producing 100% of its output with 50%. He said, look, I already saved 50%. I go, schmuck. Then he says, but 50% is a lot of food. I think we could further reduce it by another 50%. Again, he does that. The animal was a little sluggish for a couple of days, but he's working it hard, and the animal's producing at 100%. Then he says, it's still too much. You know what? Why should I feed him at all? I'm not feeding him at all. And he gets a little sluggish, he feeds the animal's producing really good. A week goes by, now all of a sudden the animal drops dead. He says, I can't believe it. I finally perfected my horse, and he drops dead on me. Right? So, it was a fat horse, and he weakened. So the halacha is, Mishalom Tashlume Kevel, Tashlume Abba Chamisha, Kein Shagana. He had to be the fat one. Once again, didn't Rab say that you pay Kevel of Tashlume Abba Chamisha like it was the Shas HaMot of Din? There's a special reason for it. Mishum Damrinan Lay, Mali Kotla Kula, Mali Kotla Pal.
Yeah, no problem.
Mali Kotla Kula, Mali Kotla Pal. This is a very interesting comment. So let's see what Rashi says about this comment. Mali Kotla Kula, Mali Kotla Pal goes, Zok Rashi, Hilcha, Meahi Shadi the Akasha, the moment you started beating this horse, Aschala La Tvicha. The Tvicha started when the animal was still healthy. So, of course, you pay tvicha, like Rav says. You pay for it at the time of the tvicha, right? The problem is when did the tvicha start? It didn't start when you actually shechted it. The first moment you started beating it, that was the first step of the demise of the animal. So let me ask you a question. Based on what Rashi said, what if the animal weakened by itself due to no input of the
pre-existing condition?
The animal was weakening. The animal was weakening, whatever it was. According to Rashi, he would pay the kefil and the alvei of the animal based on when it died, based on when he shechted it, which would be much less. It's already hilkasha. The only reason why, according to Rashi, here he pays more is because he was the one who started killing the animal. It was a slow and painful death. It started earlier. That's how Rashi learns that it's actually the beginning of Tficha Mishir. Tosfos has a massive problem with this chap. Because what would have happened if he didn't shecht it? What would have happened if he was killed it? So there is no tvicha here. So are you going to say that? Are you going to say that he has to pay? That he has to pay from later on because there was no tvicha? You still have to make an argument that he would pay for it from before it weakened, right? So that's what Tosfos deals with, and Tosfos, because of that, has a whole different shot than Mali Kataful, Mali Katafal. It's not that the tvicha started there. No. And let's see what Tosfos said. Tosfos says very, very interesting. Zok Tosfos, Mali Kataful, Mali Katafal. Pirsha countries, Mishum de Hinkasha Askala at Askala the Tficha. That's the Tficha. We look at it like the Tficha started at that point, meaning when the animal was fully healthy. Because of the The loishayich hakosher l'tficha. What in the world does weakening an animal have to do with shechting it? Meaty at all? Even shim haya harga kula binyanzeh. What if he would have just worked it to death and he never shechted it? Lo haya ba din dal v'hei. There would be no din dal v'hei at all. So you can't say that's called a tzvicha. It's not a tzvicha at all. So what does the Gemara mean? Elahachi park. This is what the Gemara means. Different than Rashi. Mali kot lakula, meaning if he killed the animal, the ein hoichen basar adamim the hashta. You don't go basar what it's worth now. The kana b'shinui. So if he killed the animal, now he has a dead animal, and it's worth a fraction of what it was worth when he stole it. You don't say, okay, I stole an animal worth 1,000. Now that it's dead, it's worth 100. It's an animal. I'm only paying him 100. You don't say that. The initial nicknav. You say it's not the nicknavs anymore. Rather, you go basar when it belonged to the nicknav, when there was a strong and healthy animal when he stole it. That's when you timestamp the assessment of the value of the animal. So therefore, if you weakened it, it's the same thing. We say that we timestamp it from before you started to weaken it. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're the one who did it. It's because this is not the animal that you stole from him. You have to pay the value of the animal that you stole from him. Well, if he says, according to my pshat, it's nothing to do with the fact that I did it like Rashi learned. It's merely the fact that this is not the animal that I stole. I stole a perfectly healthy animal from you. If it starts to deteriorate, that's no more than Nicknav's loss. What you took from the Nicknav was a healthy animal. The Mali Mesa Kula, Mali Mesa Palgo, Vadi Mesa Kula Mela, if the animal for sure died by itself, Yesh L'chai B'Kidei. No one's going to suggest that the guy only has to pay back the value of a carcass. He'll have to pay back a full live animal. So you should Nicknav. But like Basar Asim, you don't go Basar now that the animal is dead. Therefore, v'chika mashani umukim milta the rab v'yukar bezula. Okay, so let's stop here because now Tosfos is saying how his shot here will impact the mashkan of the sugya. So maybe we'll revisit this when we get to the mashkan of the sugya. But the main point to know is that Rashi holds that the tficha started earlier. Tosfos says it's not mistaber that the tficha started earlier. It's a general rule across the board. Whenever an animal seriously deteriorates from the time that you stole it, of course, your responsibility to pay back the nignav is before its deteriorated state. Okay, Zok the more about it. Kikom Rav b'yukra v'zula. Who the come? Where did Rav say his halacha? Not when there was a status change of the animal, when the animal becomes worth less, because the animal changed. It's only totally in market. So if you notice, we just cut off half of what Rav is talking about. It's no more kedemekar kedahashta when the animal physically changes. There, it's always kedemekar. Now he's saying a new thing. That as Rav said, that akla keren shkin shagana, but you pay shas mother bedin for kefel for dalvei. That's only talking about market fluctuations. The point is that Rashi, the point that Rashi said, the Tosfos thing is, but based on what I'm saying now, Umuki Mil to the Rav Yukra Bazula, we just tell down Rav is not speaking ever when there is a change in condition of the animal. It's only referring to when the market value changes. We'll have a matilukmi the mela. You couldn't have stelled it out in the case where it got weak by itself, because according to Tosfos, that's also Bali Metzakula Mal Metzakala. But according to Rashi, if it happened by itself, you can't be behind the God for it. So according to Rashi, it would be a little bit fair. Why did our Gemara have to spell it on by Yukra Bazula? The Gemara could have spelled on Rav Shalocha even in the case of a kosher, but by a kosher the memela. That's one of the ha'oris that we will have on Rashi based on Tosfos' understanding. Okay, Valtik. He also brings down another pshat from the Ri. The Motil Farish bin Yinacher Malikot Kol Malikot Palga. Koloimar Afilu Lemandamar Ein L'Shchita El Lebesoy. Even if you hold that the shchita only happens at the end, meaning so when does the chiyav dal get triggered when a ganav shechts it? At the last second. The animal was long dead before the last second. You don't say I got to pay 4 times the animal's value based on when it's 99% dead already, because that's nothing. There's very little to pay there. If he mashu shava b'mashu achron, elo if he mashu shava hoidim shchita. You have to pay its value before you started. If you killed half of it, meaning you weakened it, You always look at before whatever you did to it occurred.
What happens?
Well, 3 times that, according to this shot, have a much look the milk of the rab will push a mela. So, as Price is saying, according to these pshatim, we didn't have to go dafka to a case of Yukra Vizula, even by a case of Hukush of Mela, it would have also worked. But according to Tyson, it wouldn't work because Hukush of Mela is no longer in the status that it was. Okay, keep what are you saying?
I just want to know about Shabbos. Is the same halacha when they have the chiyuv of Shabbos of Shechti? When you start or when you finish? Metilas Neshama.
Metilas Neshama is before the end of the Shechita.
So that's when you're chayiv.
Oh.
So if he, I'm just thinking, come in the drop in me. So if he stole the animal and he's shechting it on Shabbos, it could be he's not going to get kamle midrab minei because
the kamle midrab minei, it doesn't have to be at the same instance. In order to be able to, if in order to do the shechita, you need to be over Shabbos, you would still say kamle midrab minei. They don't have to happen at the same instance. We had many different shabbos about that. L'moshel, there's a case where you shot an arrow,
Right.
and it tore a beged. When it tore the beged, you weren't chayv yet. There was no hanacha yet, but you still say kamle midrab minei because it's wrapped up into the ma'isa. Okay, zok to gemara vayta. Yukar v'zul hudakam. Hey chedami. So let's drill down. Yukar v'zul means if it went up or if it went down. We're soon going to see that's not so necessarily. If when the Ganim stole the animal, it was worth 1 zuz. And then it was worth 4 zuz. It went up in value. So Karen Kain Shagana, Rav said you pay Karen Kain Shagana means instead of paying back 4, you only have to pay back 1. Right? So Rav said 2 halachas. He said Karen Kain Shagana and Kevel Vidal hey. So now we're focusing on the first half of what he said. Till now, we were focusing on the second half of what Rav said. Now we're focusing on the first half. Karen Kain Shaganav seems to contradict what Rabba said. Someone stole a barrel of wine from his friend. When he stole it, it was worth 1 zuz. And when it came time to pay back, it was already worth 4 zuz. What if he actively broke the barrel or he drank it, so he was mapped to the barrel? At that point, he permanently, what does it mean? Deprived. He permanently deprived the owner of this barrel. Until he broke it, he didn't permanently deprive it. The barrel was still there. Now it's permanent. Mishalim dal. He has to pay dal. And Rashi explains because when he broke it or he drank it, it's like he made another ma'asek zela by permanently depriving the owner of it, and therefore the ma'asek zela of dalit is going to be mechayiv and dalit. But if it broke by itself, then the only ma'asek zela he made was at the time that he originally took it, and therefore Mishalim Zuz. Now, Tabachu Moch, wouldn't you compare that to a case of Tavrei Shasha? He physically broke the animal, right? So, according to Rav, what do? You pay Karen Kain Shagana, right? But Rabbi says you'd pay Karen Kidahashta. Because if at the time you made the tficha, the animal was worth $1 zuz, even though when you stole it, it was worth 1 zuz, according to Rabbah, the tficha is like a nuganeva, and therefore you would pay 4 zuz. Yet Rav says you only pay 1 zuz. So it seems like Rav and Rabbah do not get along. Amri Zot Gemara, no, they can absolutely get along. And maybe Rav agrees to Rav. So under what conditions did Rav say that you pay Karen Kain Shaganav? He come a Rav, could go into the Kara Shavi Dal, the Besoib Shavazuzah, where it went down the Dal. So you see from a broad halacha, we always pay Karen Kain Shaganav, we limited it to a case where it's only in value change, and only if it went down and not went up. Zok Gemara, he come a Rav, it's like any sales job. They tell you that this car that you're going to buy has everything going for it. And then after you buy it and pay for it, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. Oh, I forgot to tell you, it doesn't do that either, it doesn't do this.
But 1 out of 3 is not so bad.
So therefore, you pay Karen Kain Shaganav because your original Geneva, and Rabbi would agree to that. You look at the two Genevas, the one when I took it and the one when I broke it, and you pay the higher amount. So the higher amount was when I took it, and therefore you pay Kain Shaganav.
If that's the case, with Yukra also we can say that. Pay the higher of the 2 Genevas.
That's correct. That's exactly what we're saying. So if it went up, you pay the higher. But Kain Shaganav means when you originally took it. You want to say that Kain Shaganav means the second Geneva. But it's not really
Yeah,
covered.
okay, go ahead. I
So
can't-
the
I
Ganav
can't-
never.
But let me just finish this.
benefits.
When it came to the Kula Bava Chamisha, Kshas Hamad B'Din.
So the Ganav never benefits. That's the point.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
That's the way it should be.
why do you sound surprised?
Yeah.
No, because
I mean, in the real world, the gun have always benefits.
get some angle, some.
And the gun of the gun, if he's not entitled to any benefit.
It is to be a gospel.
Because no, the point is that he could say the reason it went up is because I stole it, No,
I
it's just-
stopped you from.
selling it in
Selling it
advance,
on
where you were going to sell the
Okay,
stock.
right
And
here.
then,
Tani, we learned Reb Chanina l'siyula Rav. Till now, we're repeating up on Rav. Now Rav found friends. Reb Chanina wants to bring a riot to Rav. What's the riot? Very interesting case. Balabayis. Some of the Gemara refers to the shomer as the Balabayis. So there was a shomer chinam, let's say, who's potter on Geneva Vaveda. The Balabayis comes to say, "May I please have my Rolex back?" And he said, "Shantoin Tan is gone. Your Rolex was stolen, and therefore I'm potter." Because the halacha is he has to swear, Vinishba, and the shomer swore that it was a Geneva, and then he heard a shmooze and he felt guilty, and he went back to the owner and said, "You know what, your Rolex? It wasn't really stolen. I really took it." So the halacha is normally in such a case you pay keren v'chomish v'asha, but his troubles um, multiplied. Ubo Edim, and then Edim came as well. So im at shaloi bo Edim hoida. If he was moida before the Edim came, so he's potter from kefil, because at least if you hold moida v'chnas v'achar bo Edim is potter, he is potter from kefil. So what will he pay? Mishalom keren v'chomish v'asha. But v'misha bo Edim hoida, if first the Edim came and then he was moida, so then he had to pay kefil. Masham tishul kefil v'asham v'chaim she'oiloi b'kefil. The chaimish will be oiloi b'kefil. So I feel bad.
Why the after the Edom?
Yeah, therefore he's still chayav kefil, right? He's still chayav kefil, but he's also chayav the chaimish and the asham because he was moida. So I want to stop for a second because I really wanted to speak this out. When we learned yesterday the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel of moida v'knas, the achach bo'edim, where Rav says it's potter and Shmuel is chayav, but I forgot. But now that I have a way to shoehorn it in, I'm going to share it over here. So we know that Shmuel holds moida v'knas v'achach bo'edim chayav. If you think about it, how could a yid ever do tshuva? When we're doing tshuva, we're being moed v'knas, we're doing vidoy. The problem is, every single one of us, there's going to be a video evidence, and there'll be the achach bo'edim. So according to Shmuel, tshuva doesn't help because it's always moed v'knas, the achach bo'edim is chayiv. And there are those who learn with Derech Melitza, that was one of the klolos that Bilam gave Yisrael. He said, "Mi yichya, mi sumay keil." So for Derech Melitza, you could say, "Mi yichya, mi shmuel." Sumay keil is combined with Shmuel. Mi yichya, mi Shmuel. Who's going to be able to survive loss of lovoi? You have Shmuel that even tshuva won't help because it's achar bo'edim. Teretz is when we do tshuva, we say v'salachta lavinenu ki ravu. We say because Baruch should be moichelas because we pass like Rav that moed v'knas achar bo'edim is pot.
tied in, by the way, to the kill much.
You wouldn't get away with that by Reb Shmuel.
So let me tell you, if you're talking about not getting away with it by Shmuel, I'm going to tell you a beautiful part that Shia Shachachevsky said over today from Chaim Mendel Bratsky. Chaim Mendel Bratsky asked, I don't understand. If you're walking and you're about to walk into a hazard, whoever sees you headed in that direction will scream, "Stop, stop, there's a minefield ahead of you." But that's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to Moshe. He let Moshe get really close to the bush, and when Moshe said, "Hineni," then Hashem said, "Okay, take off your shoes." Why did Hashem wait till he literally was almost in the fire? He should have stopped him much earlier. Zokt Chaim Ratsky said this over b'shem Hachsidisha. He said, "You know what made him a Makan Kadosh? When Moshe Rabbeinu said, 'Hineni, ich bin great,' to folgen der Boishlam, to do their Boishlam Shlichus, that made it the Makan Kadosh. So it wasn't a Makan Kadosh up until that point. So Shir Shach told me that when the Visions Rebbe came, before he was the Visions Rebbe, he was just the Visions Rebbe's son. He told him over this fort, and the guy went nuts. He said, "Now live back under the fort, oh, now live back." Top of the family, he was so blown away with this fort. He was so excited with himself. So maybe Rav Shmuel would like it. Maybe in his old age, he's opening his heart to Chassidish Torah. He talked to Gemara. So let's see what Rabbi Yaakov said. Rabbi Yaakov said that you pay cable the asham the chaim shei oila b'kfeil. So you would think his cable is $5, his chaimish is $1, so it covers it up. That's not pshat. Let's see Rashi what pshat is. Mishalem kefel v'osham v'choimish oiloloi b'soich hakefel. Sharei choimish l'baylam. The choimish is paid to l'baylam, which is exactly where the kefel is paid. So if the payment of kefel is being paid to the baylam, so that will also work towards the choimish. V'hu and the baylam got the money. V'al karchach shot Rashi had Rabbi Yaakov v'sheshavin ke'echad ha'choimish v'kefel. If the kefel and the choimish were the same value, you can ask how is that possible? We'll get there when we talk about markup. But Kamari must be where they're worth the same value. Why? If the kefil is worth more than the chaimish, lav chumshav. That's not a chaimish. The prescription for your refuah, for your kapara, is $5, not $25. And therefore, if you give $25, it doesn't work. Overpaying does not work. It's not taking the right prescription. You have to be the exact amount. The chaimish kapara dishuhu. So I don't understand. So pay a kefil in tidbits. Instead of paying $5 kefil, give $1 at a time. I don't know. But I'll call upon them. Rashi is saying that Rabbi Yaakov, this only works if the chaimish and the kefil are the same value, which now we're going to have to figure out. How could 1/5 of something
How could it ever be?
Something itself? I'm sorry?
How could it ever be?
Oh, so the Gemara is going to figure that out in a second. Divrei Rabbi Yaakov. So first, let's go off on a tangent. We're going to come back to understanding how that's possible shortly. Let's turn on Talmud Beis and let's see the people who argue in Rabbi Yaakov. There are those who say no. Whenever you're chayiv kefil, you're automatically not chayiv a chayiv. The Chachamim Maimrim, the pasuk says when it talks about paying the chaimish for someone who lied and swore, you got to pay back the keren. The chamishisa of Yosef and ada chamish. So we darshan b'roishay v'chamishasa. Mamin amishalim b'roish. If you pay back the same amount of money that you stole and not kefil, then there's a chiyuv to pay chaimish. But moment she'emish talam b'roish, because you're doubling it up, because you're paying kefil, ain't lois of chaimish. So the chachamim darshan from a pasuk that you never pay a chaimish if you don't give back the keren by itself. If you give back kefil, but the asham you still do. Asham you still do. Rav Shimon Yarki says even more. You don't even mean the carbon ashami. So we're going to get back to discuss the Chachamim and Rab Shimon later, and that's really off topic. We're going to focus on Reb Yaakov, who is the focus of our Haraya. Katani mias, the chaimish and the kefil will be one and the same, and therefore it will work for both, the same payment. How is this possible? If it's worth 4, well, how is that possible? The kefil would be 4. It's the exact same shavis as the keren itself. The chaimish will only be azuz. I this is only a quarter of 4, but it's milabar. So therefore, what we're saying is after you add the chaimish to the keren, now it works out that it's 1/5 of the total amount. El Olav, the only way you can understand the case where the chaimish would be equivalent in value to the kefil is the meikar shava arba. It was originally worth 4. Ulabasayv shava zuzah. Now it's only worth a zuz. The kveil zuzah, the kefil, as Rav says, is kishat hamad bedin. So the kefil will only be a zuz. But the chaimish is based on the keren, which was worth 4 at the time of the geneva. The chumsh zuzah. So you see that the only way for Rabbi Yaakov's case to ever be relevant is only the Yosy Rav. Alva keren kein shagonav tashlume kefil but tashlume dal vei kishas hamad bedin. So Rav is in good company because clearly Rabbi Yaakov holds like. Amar Rava, no, it's not a raya. La'olam de meikar shavar ba ba'chnami shavar ba. So how could you have a chaimish of only 1? The teretz is he's a reoffender. He's a multiple offender. I'm not sure how, he's a repeat. He's a repeat offender. With the kasha kfeila dalad the chumshe zuzah hacha b'mayaskinon kagon shenitzba v'chazer v'nitzba arba pavim. He swore 4 times. Each time he swore, it triggered another chiyuv of a chaimish. So now he already owes 4, which is the same value as the kefil. The haida then he was moida. Atayra amra v'chamishi sav. Chamishi sav is plural. The chaimish is v'chamishi sav Yosef alav. So you see the Torah is talking about a case where you're paying multiple chaimishes. Must be that for every time you swear, you pay another chaimish. Atayra ripta chamishi is harbe b'keren achad.
Why wouldn't keren kefil also be
Because the cable you pay once, you steal, you pay back cable. Swearing has no impact on whether or not you pay cable.
What about trying that is gone? In that case,
In the case of Tiny Tiny Ganav, you still only pay cable once. You only pay cable once. The Chamish is a whole different parsha. The parsha of Tiny Tiny Ganav, the parsha of Tiny Tiny paying cable is for stealing it, not for swearing. You have to swear, Tucker, but it's for stealing it. And there it only says one cable. It's only marba multiple payments by the payment of Chaimish because it says that Chamishi saw. There's no indication in the parsha of 20 times time of pays cable that you would be able to pay multiple cable. Right. Okay, so So we tried bringing a riot to Rav, and we didn't have a riot to Rav. Okay, Omar Mar. Now that we brought down this brisa that discusses that when someone pays kefil, they don't pay the Chaimish, the Gemara wants to drill down a little bit into understanding the position of the Chachamim and the position of Reb Shimon Yochai. Omar Mar, Chachamim Ayim Beroisha v'Chamishisoi, Mamon Amishtalim Beroish Moisef Chaimish, Mamon She'enishtalim Beroish. Rather, you're adding a secondary payment of cable to it. Ein Moisef Chaimish. There's no Chiyuv Chaimish. I will offer Ma'is, but the Osham you'll still bring. Right to Gemara, Ma'is na Chaimish Taloi Mishalim Dechsev Beroisha v'Chamishisoi. Osham Nami Loi Mishalim. The very next pasuk after the Torah tells you about the Chaimish, the Torah says, and you know what else you have to pay due to this Avera? The Aksiv, the Es Hashama, and you bring an Osham. So the Es Hashama is basically saying the Osham tags along with the Chaimish, and if you're not paying the Chaimish, why would you pay the Osham? Amilach Es Paske Lakra. There's an S there, the Es Hashama. So that tells you that although there's an Osham, it's not contingent, it's not connected to the Chaimish, it's independent, and therefore, even though the pasuk is Maram is that you don't pay the Chaimish, when you're paying kefil, the Osham you'll pay all the time. Rab Shimon Yochai says, it says this, the Vav is Arvik Vav. The Rabban say, if S is Mafsik and Vav is Ma'ariv, so why don't you do them? Rabban Amilach, Loi Lichter, Loi Vav, V'lo Yes. And then you would say it's one and the same. Rab Shimon Yochai Amilach, no, there has to be an S. S Loi Tagid Loi Kosav, and Rashi says it's not makovidik, it's not appropriate that the pasuk will discuss mammon that gets paid to the owner versus a payment or a carbon that's brought to the body shalom without separating them. They have to be demarcated. They have to be separated. Therefore, you have to have S to separate. But we want to know that the Osham has the same halacha as the Chaimish, Hilchach Asavav Arveikra. Okay, so that was the end of the sugya, and now we're going to have a whole new sugya. Rabbi Loi taught us, Gonav Tale, Vinasai. You stole a baby ram, Vinasai became a big ram. So there was a shinu in its group. It did changed dramatically. Or Egel, you stole a little calf, Vinasa Shur became an ox. Nasa Shinui Biyadai, that's considered a Shinui, the Kanai. So now the Ganav was koine the animal Bashinui, Shlomi brought up earlier. Even though it's from a male. What if now the Tanya of the Tomelo is a very valid Tanya, and there's going to be someone who argues in Rabbi Loi because of that Tanya. But Rabbi Loi seems to hold that's not an issue. So therefore, Tabachu Mocher, once you make Tvicha Mechira on your own animal that you were already kind of Bishinui, Shaloyu Tever, Shaloyu Mocher, and therefore he will not pay Daladay. Beautiful. Let's see what Tosfos says. No, I'm not ready for Tosfos. I'm sorry. Zoktamar Eisvei, Rab Chanina. I'm sorry?
There's no Tosfos over here.
That's right. I made a mistake. The Tosfos that I want to learn is a little bit later. Eisvei, Rab Chanina, Rabbi Loi. Gonav Tle, Vinasa Ay. Exactly the case where Rabbi Loi said, exactly the case where Rabbi Loi said that you don't pay Dalvei. It says over here, Gonav Tle, Vinasa Ay, Egel Nasa Shor, Mishalom Tushlu Mekevel, V'tashlumi Abar V'chamisha, Ka'ein Shigon. So the way I would have asked this kasha is it's fair because Rabbi Loi says you don't pay Dal V'hei, and the Bride says you do pay Dal V'hei. The Gemara doesn't ask it that way, and I don't know why. Maybe someone has an explanation. The Gemara says if you hold like Rabbi Loi that after it becomes an adult animal, you're kanya b'shinu, amay mishalom. Why would you pay Dal V'hei? Shaloyu teveach, shaloyu moicher. Why don't I understand it? If Al Rabbi Loi said which are koine b'shinui, and he didn't express an opinion specifically about your pot from Dal V'hei, this would be a very good kasha. Rabbi Loi said you're koine b'shinui. The bride says you're chay Dal V'hei. According to Rabbi Loi, you're koine b'shinui why you're chay Dal V'hei. But Rabbi Loi said the first your pot from Dal V'hei. So the Gemara should ask, how could you say you're potter in dalvei? The bride said you're chayv in dalvei. Does that catch make sense?
Rabbi does not say the pashtus.
Yes, you said shalom to be'er shalom market. So obviously potter in dalvei.
That's the.
So in fact, he doesn't say you're perish chayv or potter. He just says you're a kohen, it's yours. Okay. Okay, that's a good chat. That's a good chat. Thank you. Now I have clarity. Very geschmack. So my mishalom shalom to be'er shalom market. Very geschmack. Amr lay. So Rabbi Lo says, okay, you have a nice catch on me, but you think your brisa makes any sense? You have problems with your brisa, irregardless of the fact that it disagrees with me. The LMI. So you're going to tell me Shinu like honey? You're going to say Shinu's not koina? And here's what Taisva says: no one's going to suggest that Shinu's not koina. We all know Shinu's not koina. We all know Shinu is koina, according to Basil. What it means here: are you going to disagree with me that this type of Shinu de Memela is not koina? That's what it means to say. If you look at Rashi, V'iyam Shinu koina. Pirish Gihad the Tlev Nasa Ayel. I will help Shita this Shinu Kani. It's clear that Shinu is Kani. The question is this is Shinu that it's Kani. So Velamai Shinu like Kani? If that's the case, Amai Mishalim Kain Shagana. Why do you pay Dal Bey Kain Shagana? If it's not a Kenyan, then he should pay the value of the animal when he shechted it. L'shalom Kiyashta. Now is when he shechted it. Yeah. Omar Lay. So Rabbi Chanina answered back, no. You don't know. You want to know why we don't pay based on this dollar? You know, which is a lot more, right? It's an idol. It's a sure. You should do armor lay because the guy will say, "Did I steal an ox from you?" What does dichra mean? What's the type of dichra? Is dichra an idol or a sure?
Aisle.
Oh, so Tur Gamvach, did I steal an ox from you? Dichra Gamvach, did I steal an idol from you? Why should I pay Dal Bay for something that I didn't steal from you? Which is a little bit schwer. It's a little bit schwer because right. It's a little bit schwer. It's a little bit schwer because it's your animal, right? It's your animal. So Rabbi Lloyd didn't like that shot. Rabbi Lloyd said, "What are you talking about? Rachamon will tell me I can't save us from the nonsense that you're saying." So this is when you're getting very frustrated and you can't. You're explaining it so clearly, and your wife refuses to accept it. You tell her, "Rachamon will tell me." And she goes to all the way, but she's telling you,
take it easy. Don't get so excited.
So this is not the way to have a conversation with your wife. This is the Geshemaka way to have a heated argument in the Bismedrish. But don't try this at home because you're guaranteed to be the doctor. Gewaltig. Geshemaka Gemara. Okay. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Masika Flora up there. So we still have to do an accounting here. We still got a problem. Rabbi Loy still has a brisa that says not like him.
Say Rabbi Lowy. He's try to avoid the hearing. Right? People on Zoom think he's saying Rabbi Lowy.
Say it like a
Rabbi Eloi.
Rabbi Louis.
Rabbi Louis.
The Masika Flora up there. Rabbi had a big kasha. So before we do Rabbi kasha, we still have a problem. Rabbi Lowy still has a problem he's got to deal with. Rabbi Lowy still has a problem that he's got to deal with, right? But the Val we're gonna have another kasha on the brisa. Agreed that you're not koina b'shinui ma'isa because it's not a good shinui, and to learn Rashi inside, which really expresses what Shlomi said earlier, the Gemara asked v'niknu b'shinui Hashem. So first, let's focus on why the shinui ma'isa doesn't work. Nehidus shavach the gufei loya b'shinui the memelech shavach. The fact that it started off as a egel and became a shar, it started off as a pled and it became an aisle, that you don't consider a shinu ma'isa because it happens by itself. The memelech shavach was. So there, I understand why you argue on Rabbi Loy. But the animal changed names, and Shinu Hashem is also a valid Shinu with which you could be koina. I told something that was labeled as a plef, and now it's labeled as an idol. Right. So Al Tashinu Aguf, I understand that's not a good Shinu, but it's a pure Shinu Hashem. Rava, the teretz is that it didn't change its name at all. Shar ben Yoimei Kar Shar. The day a Shar is born and it's only an ego, it actually is still referred to in the Torah with the word Shar. And the Ayel ben Yoimei Kar Ayel. Where do we see this? Shar ben Yoimei Kar Shar. Shar oy kesav oy is kiyavale. So you see clearly the day it was born is referred to as a Shar. Ayel ben Yoimei Kar Ayel. When Yaakov finally blew up at Lavan for harassing him, he said, "What do you want from me? I was such a dedicated employee to you." And he said as follows: "Zeh Esrim Shana, for the last 20 years, Anoichi Imach, that I'm with you, Rechelecha v'Izecha lo shikelu. Never did any of your animals lose a child. The Eloi Tancha lo yachalti, and I never ate one animal, one idol of yours." Break the Gemara. Break the Gemara. The Eloi Tancha lo yachalti. Elam udla'achal. It was Yaakov saying only animal I didn't eat. I only ate when they were young and fresh. Avada, that's not what Yaakov meant. Yaakov meant he didn't eat anything at all. So you see from here, Allah showing me now, Ayel ben Yoimei, Karu Ayel. Doctor, when we come up in Pasha, Rabbi Loi still has a problem. Because Rabbi Loi says you don't pay Dal Behay because you're a kind of Bishinu Maita, and the bride says you are. Omar Psheje, Tamani Beishamahi. Avada, this is a good Shinui. Everybody agrees to me, Rabbi Loi says, that it's a good Shinui. But Beishamai holds that Shinu is never coin at all. The armor is Shinu bim koimai medet, it stays in its place, or bim koimai oimed, as Rashi changes the Yosy. Avagav the ishtani loy nafak mershus Bible. It stays where it is. Yes, it's a Shinui, but Shinui is not coin. But like on it's not coin of the Tanya. Where do we see the makar of Beishamai Salacha that Shinu is not koina? Esnan Zoina. Not a lot Esnana. A Mizana gave a Zoina as payment. Chidin, kernels of wheat, v'asan silas, and she made them into flour. Zaytim, olives, v'asan shemen, she made them into oil. Anavim, wine, v'asan yain, and she made them into wine. Are these now mutter to be put on the mizbeach? They're no longer the same objects that they were given to her as. Tanichada osir, one brayso says it would be osir to put these on the mizbeach, but tanichada mutter. Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef explained it. Tani gurian de maspurik, Beishamai oishrin. Kashinu is not kind of. Yeah, his name is Gurion. He had a son who was once a prime minister in Israel. And the Shammai says,
right, very good.
the Shammai said, author, even though it changed, it's still also to put on the mizbeach, we still material. My time in the Shammai, the says gam l'rabbi shinuyim. It says Payver Hashem gam shnayim, even the shinui. So what everybody is going to ask here, just because also in the mizbeach, what does that have to be kind of b'shinui, right? So let's see Tosfos. Tosfos answers this question. Tosfos says, "Hamani beishamahi, high shinuya left for this teretz wouldn't be fit according to Rabbi Shita. The Islay Bereisha goes Kama dafka legvoya asher beishamim shunda imis. He also beishamim got the whole thing was kind of. Beishamai is only saying this halacha legabe esen zoida because even though there was a shinui and shinui is kind of, but it's still moist for gvoya. But not like Rava, the machlokes of Esnan is also relevant to Shinu Kaina. In fact, tells us why. The Ma'in Esnan it's Shinu. Whether or not an Esnan is mutar on the mizbeach should impact whether or not you're Kaina b'Shinu. The Katsavar, our Gemara holds the Shinu Kaina. If Shinu is Kaina, imkain royal hulahater Shinu be'Esnan. It's appropriate to be matir it to be brought on the mizbeach by an Esnan. The Choshev Ka'achar. It's considered as a different object. This isn't the same item that she received b'toras esnan. If it's a different object, legabi kinyan, the svara is it should be a different object, legabi being brought on.
So regardless how it passed hands, in other words, if she gave it to somebody else, the same flour, let's say before, it would still be us. It goes the way down the line. It's not just her that she can't bring it.
That's right.
So if you're going to hold it, it can be kind of b'shino. You can't be though kind of with the rishus acher either. Reselling it.
Reselling it doesn't change anything.
Well, it should. If you hold it, it changes for a tzura.
I buy it right now.
Because this animal is still in essence item. Why would you be? Yeah, of course. This animal is poisoned forever.
Until you shech, or until you in its wool, everything.
You can never bring it as a carbon.
You can't bring it as a carbon.
Yeah, but you have to know the history of the whole cow. You have to know everything that happened to it from the day it's born.
When you want to bring it to you need a yikuf. You have to bring a whole yikuf brief with it.
Who owned it? Right. All the owners. Was it bartered ever?
Right. And what was the bartered for? Right.
Right.
Okay. His up to Gemara Vayt. Dichsiv gam l'rab. I'll tell you afterwards. Gam l'rab shinu eyev. Even if there's a shinu, it's going to be also that's b'shamay shita. We still says heim v'loy shinu eyev. It says gam gam shnei hem v'loy shinu eyev. I didn't know that the hem is Shneim, but someone told me in note 13 in the art scroll it says so. I'd be very curious to know where the art scroll got that from. Right. But no, he knows. Where do you know that from? From the pasuk, it says Tayavashim Gam Shneim. So it's the hem of Shneim. That's what the art scroll says it's referring to. But I don't know where the art scroll gets it from. There are people who are happy quoting it from the art scroll. I like quoting the
Shneim 33.
So he brings it's Rabbeinu Gershom. Okay, so I don't have a Rabbeinu Gershom on my Gemara here. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay. Oh,
You're not gonna find it.
okay, good. Beishamai, and Beishamai says, "Ahu haim." It does say haim to say that there's going to be an exception. It's haim v'loy v'lodoy saying. If the animal that was given to her as an esna gives birth to another animal, that animal, in fact, could be brought on the
Regardless, was
mizbeach.
pregnant at the time, and I'm referring to the animal. Regardless, right?
No, but it goes to show that never does the Rebbeinu Shalom hold the child responsible for the affairs of their father. Even though the animal is also to be brought on the mizbeach, the child is good. Child is good. Haim v'loy v'loy same hudah. With Hillel, tati shamet mina. The haim is exclusive. Haim v'loy shinu yayim. Haim v'loy v'loy same. Frank Gemara with Hillel ksiv gam. It does say tavisham gam shneim. What's gam trying adding to the answer? Gam with Hillel kasha. No. But Hillel will deal with gam. Ad kan like pligi. The whole machlokes between Rabbi Loi and Rabbi Chanina regarding this halacha as to whether or not you pay dal v'hei is el the ma'asav shinu koina. Rabbi Loi holds shinu is koina. This type of shinu is koina, and therefore you're not chayv dal v'hei. U'ma'asav ain't shinu koina, and the bride holds shinu is not koina. And Rabbi Chanina obviously was asking Rabbi Loi, so he must be learning that the bride is eating according to Basil, but this shinu aguf is not a good shinu. But they're not arguing about anything else. No. Rabbi Loi says shinu is koina. And he's saying the bride that it says it's not koina is Beishamai. But Rabbi Chanina said, no, it's not the Basil, but this is not a good shinu. Right? They're arguing about whether or not the shinu aguf is a good shinu. But they both agree, however, Avalini Shlume, that as far as paying, Kula Alma Kedemei Kara Mishalom. Everybody holds you pay Kedemei Kara. Why? Because if you look at the brisa that Rabbi Hanina quoted, it says the Katani Misham the Shlume Kevel, the Shlume Bava Chavisha, Ke'ein Shagana. Right? So you don't find that there's an argument about the Ke'ein Shagana. The argument is if you pay Dal V'Hedal. But Rabbi Loy agrees you pay Kevel, and he agrees with the brisa that you would pay Kevel Ke'ein Shagana. So let's see Rashi. Avalini Shlume could go in Kevel or Rabbi Loy. According to Rabbi Loy, you only pay Kevel, you don't pay Dal V'Hei. But the Dal V'Hei, Rabbi Chanina, according to Rabbi Chanina, you pay Dal V'Hei because there's not a good shinu. You know, maybe Yukar V'Zula, or if there was no shinu at all, if it went up or down, the Chula Alma Kedemei Kara Mishalom, the Katani Kein Shagana. No one's disputing the line in the Brisa that says that the Kefel and the Dal V'Hei are paid Kein Shagana. The problem is that doesn't fit with Rav. Rav said it's Kedahashta. The Lema Tava to Yuk to the Rav. Let's suggest that this is going to be a Pirchan Rav. This is already from a Brisa. Doma Rav, Karen Kein Shagana, Mishalem, and the Shlume Kevel, the Shlume Dal V'Hei is Kishata Motavadin. Omar Rava, this line is a very long line. It's a very long line. Tloyim Kedemei Kara Dom Kishalach. There's three pratim in this line. Tloyim Kedemei Kara Dom Kishalach. Rashi is the first prat, which is a little bit difficult to understand the understanding of Rashi. Let's look at Rashi. Tloyim Kedemei Kara. It depends on what you're paying with. If you pay in U.S. funds, it's at par. If you pay in Canadian funds, you got to give $1.35, right? So that's Tloyim Kedemei Kara. Tloyim. If you decide you want to give him back a tle, you don't have to give back an aisle, you're allowed to give back a tle. Togi the tle ganav utle mishalim. But if you want to pay money, you're going to have to pay the cash of an aisle, which is very difficult. Because if I'm only mechuyev to pay for a tle ganav, so what's the difference if I give you an actual tle or if I pay you cash? So Rashi is learning in Rav, a very difficult thing to understand, that if you're paying back with an animal, it's to make her. If you're paying back in cash, it's kashalachsha. So therefore, when the brisa says you pay kedemei kara, that's speaking when you're actually paying back a tle. When Rav said that you pay kashalachsha, that means if you were paying it in cash. I don't know. It's very difficult. Tosfos does not like Rashi's for, and Tosfos has two additional pshat.
What's the point? How do you learn Rav's pshat?
Let me show you how Rashi. Tosfos learns a way that you would feel much more logical. Tosfos says it depends. If the animal had a shinu haguf, then you pay kedemei kara. But if it was only yukar bezula, then you pay like it's valued now. That's the most logical. Now, I have no right to say that. I understand that the best. So let's see you touch this inside. Nearly, the Linian Klev and Nasa Ayel Kusha when the Smatma Ayipcha, when we were talking about a physical change in an animal, there Mishalam Kefil Nami, the Chain Dal Vei Kidemekar. There you pay what type of animal are you going to evaluate? You're going to evaluate an animal similar to the animal that I stole. Kamoy Keret. Aval Domim, but how you value that animal, once you've determined what animal you're going to evaluate, you evaluate it based on what it's worth now. Aval Domim Danu Yukra Bazula Kishal Achshav Shesheman Oisoi Flash or Shaskaneva, Lifi Gadlusoi Katnusoi, Shahaya Bashaskaneva. So you take the plant exactly as it was at the Shaskaneva, and you see what its market value is today. Lifi Yukra Bazula the Hasta. The time of the Tloyim, it's not Rashi. It's arguing Rashi. The Re argues on Rashi. Huh? Re is not Rashi. Re is the Re. Right? The time of the Tloim, what's the svara behind it? He can say, I didn't steal an ox from you. I stole an ego. That's all I'm paying you for an ego. You have to evaluate the ego. We'll evaluate it based on what I would pay for it now.
You also stole it when you stole the ego. You stole its whatever potential it's going to grow into.
So you're telling me, so I should pay for its potential.
Correct.
I hear you. That's a good svara, but he doesn't know that it's svara. He owes you pay what you pay back. So who didn't, if it got fatter, the Amalai Shmeina I told the skinny one. So I'll pay today's market value of the skinny animal that I stole back then. There's no sport to say that. I have to pay you back such an animal. Well, let's see what it's worth today. That's what I got to pay you. We'll listen to the crow. So he goes on that it fits in the shmak and listen to the crow. Now let's skip and let's go to the Rebbeinu Tam Shprat, which is also very innovative. The Rebbeinu Tam Shprat is, let me tell you outside, then it'll be easier to read it inside. Rebbeinu Tam says, when it says Kloim Kedem Kara, what it means is if it went up. When it says Domim Kishalachshav, it means it went down. What does Kloim have to do with going up and Domim going down? Kloim, if it's similar to the case of the Brisa, that's Klev and Nasa Ayil, meaning it went up, then you pay Kedem Kara up in a lower place. But Domim, which is what Rav was talking about, and Rav is speaking about when it went down in value. If it went down in value, it's Kishalachshav. Because the case that of Domim was Rav's case. Rav was talking about Domim. So when we were saying Taloim means the case of the Brisa that we learned, those Taloim happens to be where it went up. The case of Domim, the Rav was talking happens to be when it went down. So it's a very innovative chapter. It doesn't make a difference just how big the animal, how small the animal, how it was more or less, it doesn't matter. The Taloim that the Brisa is talking about, that the Tlav Nasayil, it became better from what it was before. We don't care if it went up in value because of the market went up or because the animal improved. The Meikara Shavin Zuzah, in every such a case, the Hava Kidimikara. You always pay like it was worth at the beginning. The Lahakmer al Dalad Vehei, Loy Omar Rav. Rav didn't say to be Makmar Dalad Vehei. He wanted to be Mekal Dalad Vehei. Therefore, if the animal improved, you don't have to pay Dalad Vehei based on the improved animal. You pay it based on the original value of the animal. But Domim, Pirish Domim, the Aribu Rav, the case of Domim that Rav was referring to was when it went down in value. So going to Meikar Shavim Arba, Ulubasoiv Shavim Zuzah, and who did if the animal got skinnier, it doesn't make a difference if it's an animal change or if it's a market value change. But he come a Rav Kishalachshav. In other words, Rav is just saying that when it comes to Dal Vehei, you always pay the lower amount. Because we're not looking to be makmar and Dal Vehei. What the Mitloim when Shmeina v'Chisha Tava Kishalachshav. V'had Amar Leil Shmeina v'Chisha Kain Shaganav. I to Shmeina v'Chisha Ben Kanav where you have to pay the fat price. So Achleim Davka v'Chisha B'Yadayim that's only speaking where the person was makdash B'Yadayim, which is not the way Tosfos learned back then. What was it? What was the svara of I killed it first. The Malikata Pil Malikata Pal. Right. Tosfos learned in Mamshat and Malikata Pil. Regardless, it's not the same animal that I stole. Here, Tosfos is backing away from that based on the Rebbeinu shot. So we have three pshatim about that. We have Rashi pshat, which says it depends if you're paying with cash or with animals, which is hard for me to understand why that to make a difference. The Rishon makes the most sense. when you're talking about assessing the animal that I have to pay for, that's based on what I stole, but it's market value of today. And toys and the Rebbeinu Talmud is olive kula towards the ganev, which means if it went up in value, you pay kedem ekara, the daled vay and the kefil, and if it went down in value, you pay the went down in value, you pay the lower amount as well. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zeicha to finish. Daf Samach Hey was a pretty challenging daf, but we got through it. And tomorrow we'll learn Daf Samach Vav.
Shkoyach.
Shkoyach.
Shkoyach.